This is standard algorithm for dividing decimal numbers. So I'm going to start us off with 2 decimal numbers. And I'll show the difference in a moment if you are dividing a whole number by a decimal. Okay, so to start off, we have 3 2/10 divided by 2/10. So just like with standard algorithm of division of whole numbers, you're going to go ahead and put it inside the bracket. The dividend goes inside the bracket, divisors outside. So your next step, for your divisor, you need to move the decimal point to the right until this number becomes a whole number. So we have 2/10, we're going to change it to 2. Now you need to look at your dividend and do the exact same thing. You need to move the decimal place the same amount of times you moved it in your divisor, which is just 1. So now we have 2 going into 32. And now it becomes a simple division problem just like before. So you can look at this and say it's 16, or you can go ahead and work it out. 2 goes into 3 one time, gives you 2, subtract it out, bring down your 2, 2 goes into 12 16 times, and you have no remainder. So the answer to this, you're going to leave the decimal place where you moved it. So this is 2 and 32. So you're just going to leave it where it is in this problem, not this one. So your answer is 16. So why does this work? Why can you just move the decimal point and keep the answer the same? The reason this works is because in division, you're essentially asking how many times does 2/10 go into 3 2/10. So just by asking it that way, we can look at it and go ahead and say, okay, well, I know it goes into it once because we have 3.2 or 3 2/10, and we're asking how many times 2/10 goes into it. So if we take away that 2/10, we can say it goes into it once. So now we say how many 2/10 in 1. Because now we've already said that 2/10 goes into 2/10 once. So now we need to figure out how many 2/10 goes into 3. So to do that, I'm going to first figure out how many 2/10 are in 1. So, when doing this, you can ask yourself how many times 2 goes into 10, because that is easier for us to think about than 2/10 into 1. Why can you do that? Because you are switching it into the next place value. So no matter if you're asking how many times 2 goes into 10, or how many times 2/10 goes into 1, or how many times 20 goes into 100, as long as you keep the place values the same on both sides, your answer is going to be the same. There are 5 20s in 100. There are 5 2s in 10. There are 5 2/10 in 1. And that is why this works. As long as you keep the place values the same, your answer is going to be the same just like it was here. So the reason we move the decimal is just so that it's easier for us to see the answer and be able to work it out, because these are more friendly numbers for us to work with in our brain than these are. Okay, so back to this problem. How many 2/10 are in 1? So we just decided that there are 5 2/10 in 1. So now that we know that there are 5 2/10 in 1, I need to know how many are in 3, so I'm going to say 5 times 3. That gives me 15, and I can't forget about my 1 from over there. 15 plus 1 gives me 16. So there are 16 2/10 in 3 2/10. So that is why this works. Okay, so what if it was just 3 divided by 2/10? Alright, so I know we already know the answer because of what I just did on the side here, but I'm going to go ahead and work this out. So again, you put the dividend within the brackets, and you put the divisor out here. We don't have to move. I never move the decimal, but standard algorithm calls for you to do that. So, we're going to move it over once. So now we have 2 into, we have to move it over once. Oops, it's not 3/10, it's 3. So we have to move it over once here, and we're saying 2 into 30. So 2 goes into 30 15 times. And you can work it out if you want. 2 goes into 3 once, it gives you 2. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Alright, now you keep the decimal the same just like before. Your answer is 15. And just like before, the reason it works, these are just more friendly numbers to work with. Whether you are looking for how many times 2/10 goes into 3, or how many times 2 goes into 30, or how many times 20 goes into 300, or how many times 200 goes into 3,000, all of these answers are 15. 15 times 200 is 3,000. 15 times 20 is 300. So that is why standard algorithm division with decimals works.